I will read it. The vision of Obediah. This is what the sovereign Lord says about Edom. We have heard a message from the Lord. An envoy was sent to the nations to say, "Rise, let us go for her battle. See, I will make you small among nations. You will be utterly despised. The pride of your heart has deceived you. You who live in the clefts of the rocks and make your home on the heights, you who say to yourself, 'Who can bring me down to the ground?' Though you soar like the eagle and make your nest among the stars, from there I'll bring you down, declares the Lord. If thieves come to you, if robbers in the night, oh, what a disaster awaits you. Will they not steal only as much as they wanted? If grape pickers come to you, will they not leave a few grapes? But how Esau will be ransacked, his hidden treasures pillaged. All your allies will force you to the border. Your friends will deceive and overpower you. Those who eat your bread will set a trap for you, but you will not detect it. In that day, declares the Lord, will I not destroy the wise men of Edom, those of understanding in the mountains of Esau? Your warriors, Teman, will be terrified, and everyone in Esau's mountains will be cut down in the slaughter. Because of the violence against your brother Jacob, you will be covered with shame. You will be destroyed forever. On the day you stood aloof, while strangers carried off his wealth and foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, you were like one of them. You should not gloat over your brother in the day of his misfortune, nor rejoice over the people of Judah in the day of their destruction, nor boast so much in the day of their trouble. You should not march through the gates of my people in the day of their disaster, nor gloat over them in their calamity in the day of their disaster, nor seize their wealth in the day of their disaster. You should not wait at the crossroads to cut down the fugitives, nor hand over their survivors in the day of their trouble. The day of the Lord is near for all nations. As you have done, it will be done to you. Your deeds will return upon your own head. Just as you drank on my holy hill, so all the nations will drink continually. They will drink and be as if they have never been. But on Mount Zion will be deliverance. It will be holy, and Jacob will possess his inheritance. Jacob will be a fire, and Joseph a flame. Esau will be a stubble, and they will set him on fire and destroy him. There will be no survivors from Esau, the Lord has spoken. People from the Negev will occupy the mountains of Esau, and the people from the foothills will possess the land of the Philistines. They will occupy the fields of Ephraim and Samaria, and Benjamin will possess Gilead. This company of Israelite exiles who are in Canaan will possess the land as far as Zarephath, and the exiles from Jerusalem who are in separate will possess the towns of Negev. Deliverers will go up on Mount Zion to govern the mountains of Esau, and the kingdom will be the Lord's. So this is the prophecy from Obediah. Now, this prophecy by Obediah, the book was written sometime after the fall of Jerusalem, about 586 BC. Edom, Judah's age-old enemy, not only rejoiced over the fall of Jerusalem, but they actually took advantage of Judah's situation and loot the city and help the invader, as we just heard now. So the prophecy is about Edom, that he will be punished and defeated along with other nations that were enemies of Israel. So the chapter has got 21 verses, and about 2/3 from verse 1 to about 15, the verses are talking about the punishment of Edom. And the other third, or the quarter, which is about 5 verses, is talking about the day of the Lord. So what this prophecy shows us, or what it's telling us, is that God's will for our lives has reason and purpose. It is through scripture where we can find meaning and principles discerning God's will. So what it means is, if one is interested in knowing God's plan, then he or she must learn to walk with him, to walk with God. and the reason why I'm saying this is because there is some assurance and there is consistency across the book, where it talks about punishment, warning, and the day of the Lord. In Jeremiah 29, verse 11, it reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord." So this is prophecy again. I mean, this is the prophet Jeremiah. We are being told that there is plans for you, plans to prosper and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Again, in the same book of Jeremiah, chapter 18, verse 6, "Can I not, O house of Israel, deal with you as the potter does, declares the Lord." And the house of Israel is representing everybody. "Behold, like the clay in the potter's hand, so are you in my hands, O house of Israel." So what these verses are showing or are telling us is, God turns the course of nations and history as he pleases. We can see from what we read just now, he promised Judah that he would cut off Edom and establish Jacob. In essence, this should give us comfort about fearing man-made disasters. As is now, the burden might seem unbearable, but Jeremiah's verses are basically saying, I, the Lord, your creator, am in control. Now, verse 3 of Obadiah, or Obadiah, I don't know, depending on how you pronounce it, it reads, the pride of your heart has deceived you. You who live in the clefts of the rocks and make your home in the heights. You who say to yourself, who can bring me down to the ground? Now, when we read about this, it reminds us of Nebuchadnezzar straight away. He had this power. I'm sorry, there is some noise coming from, I'm not far from, there is a truck in the road there. Excuse me. So it's talking about Nebuchadnezzar. In Isaiah 14, we read this prophecy as well about Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. Isaiah 14, verse 12. How you have fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, O day star, son of dawn. How you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. So we can see from what we read from Edom and Nebuchadnezzar's pride, when he thought he was invincible, so was Edom. So, and this is an age-old problem. We see it was there then, and it is there now, because pride always like grows chips on people's shoulders. Pride makes us think we are independent. Pride makes us think we are self-sufficient. Pride makes us think we are invincible. But if we look at it closely, pride is based on lies. Anyone who submits to the temptation of pride surrenders his capacity to think, because their reasoning becomes distorted. You're no longer thinking properly. Something else is thinking for you. Now that was verse 3. If we go to verse 4 of Obadiah, it reads, though you soar like an eagle, though your nest is set among the stars, from there I'll bring you down, declares the Lord. So we can actually see here from Nebuchadnezzar and the rest of a couple of other people of old and now that developed pride, they were taken down. And so what it tells us that is God hates pride. So, and if one has that and continues to think in that way, illogical way, they will go down with it. And Jesus also says in Luke 16, verse 15, what is exalted among men is an abomination in the sight of God. So in order for us to walk together with God, we need to be in alignment with him. So Isaiah 2, verse 12, it reads, the Lord Almighty has a day in store for all the proud and lofty, for all that is exalted, and they will be humbled. So it goes without saying, in terms of the consistency, the prophets such as Jeremiah, Isaiah, Amos, and Obadiah. Now, that was verses 3 and 4 of Obadiah. Now, if we fast track the verses to to 15 and 16, which is the only 4 verses that I'm going to look at in the reading that we had, we see that it's now talking, this is towards the end of the chapter, it's now talking about the day of the Lord. Farmers plant seeds and they gather the harvest. So when God says you will reap what you sow, he means you will live with the results of your actions. So verse 15 of Obediah, the day of the Lord is near for all nations. As you have done, it shall be done to you. Your deeds shall return on your own head. This is verse 15. So again, it takes us back to the commandments where he says, do unto others as you want them to do to you. So if you want God to, to give you this reward, if you want God to be good to you, we just need to act accordingly. And this is supported by Proverbs. A wicked person earns deceptive wages, but the one who sows righteousness reaps a sure reward. So these verses are talking about choice, free will, that is at arm's length. If we choose foolishly, then he will grant us our independence in the day of the Lord, and he will not be our refuge. And the opportunity for righteousness will be like a feather in the whirlwind when God's wrath is revealed. This is supported in Psalm 76. It is you alone who are to be feared. Who can stand before you when you are angry? Verse 17, which is the last quotation. Verse 17 of Obediah, it reads, but on Mount Zion there will be deliverance, and it shall be holy, and Jacob will possess his inheritance. Those who have fled from the wickedness of the ego to the holiness of humility will find refuge on the day of the Lord. Zion, the city of God, shall be holy, because it will be filled not with people who never sinned, but with people who have been broken and humbled by their sin, and have thrown themselves for mercy on God, and have come to love him more than anything and any other person in the world, because he loved us before we knew him. We are told this in Jeremiah. So as we are about to take the emblems, it is also our choice. I'll end off with Jeremiah 17, verse 10. It reads, I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind, to reward each person according to their conduct, according to what their deeds deserve. I thank you.